Switzerland is out of the World Cup and the way they went out has FIFA facing questions it doesn't have easy answers for. A red card pulled from a brand new rulebook turned a tied knockout match into a man-down survival mission. And now the governing body is under fire from players, coaches and fans who watched it happen live. So let's break down exactly what happened in Kansas City, why FIFA's own rules made this possible, and why so many people are furious about it. Here's the moment. Switzerland and Argentina were tied at 1, deep in the second half of their quarterfinal in Kansas City. A contested red card, more than any moment of individual brilliance, may have decided Argentina's World Cup quarterfinal against Switzerland, leaving the Swiss to play extra time a man down before Julian Alvarez delivered the winner. That's the headline. Now here's how it actually unfolded. Around the 70th minute, with the score tied 1-1. Referee Joe Pinheiro initially booked Argentina's Leandro Paredes for a challenge on Breel and below. Standard stuff. A defender catches an attacker, ref reaches for yellow, play moves on. Except it didn't move on. A VAR review then applied FIFA's new mistaken identity rule, determining Embolo had invited the contact, rescinding Paredes' card and issuing a yellow to Embolo instead. Now, if that was Embolo's first booking of the night, this is a footnote. It wasn't, because Embolo had already been booked earlier in the match. The second yellow produced a red card, dropping Switzerland to 10 men, with the score still level and roughly 20 minutes still to play. One review, 2 cards swapped, 1 player gone, and Switzerland still had extra time to survive. The reaction on the pitch was immediate. Embolo was inconsolable afterward, with teammate Denis Zakaria pleading with Pinheiro on the field, and Swiss captain Granit Xhaka confronting the referee again during the next hydration break. This wasn't one player sulking. This was the entire Swiss camp descending on the referee at once. Xhaka didn't cool off by full time either. Speaking after the match, he said the decision had changed the game entirely, calling it hard to accept once the dressing room fell quiet with disappointment, as Xhaka told reporters. That's your captain on the record, saying a video review decided the outcome of a World Cup quarterfinal. Before the ball had even gone in the net, he wasn't alone. Defender Nico Elvedi came out swinging too, saying flatly that he didn't understand how VAR could reach that kind of conclusion. As Elvedi said post-match, 2 players, 2 different positions on the pitch, same sentiment, this made no sense to them. Then there's the manager. Murat Yakin didn't hide behind diplomatic answers. He said his team had been dominant, had controlled the match, and then got punished by a rule he called completely incomprehensible, telling reporters afterward that Switzerland didn't deserve that today, as the pain of the elimination sank in. That's 3 separate voices from the Swiss camp, captain, defender, head coach, all pointing at the same 9 seconds of officiating. So what actually happened out there? The incident occurred in the 72nd minute, when Leandro Paredes appeared to catch the heel of Embolo, and referee João Pedro Silva Pinheiro initially issued a yellow card to Paredes for the challenge. However, play was halted as a VAR check began to review the decision. And upon review, the referee determined that there was no contact and that Embolo had simulated the sequence to win a foul, subsequently canceling the yellow card initially assessed to Paredes and instead booking the Swiss forward for simulation. Since Embolo had already received a yellow card in the first half, the second yellow resulted in a red card. Read that again. The referee looked at a replay, decided a player had dived, and instead of just giving the diver a yellow like you'd expect on any given Sunday, the rule forced him to strip a card from one player and hand it to the other. And because of timing, that swap came with an automatic sending off. It's the second time a yellow card has been overturned using the mistaken identity protocol at the World Cup, a rule that allows the video assistant referee to intervene when an incorrect player is shown a yellow or red card. This is where the backlash starts, not because Embolo went down easily, plenty of pundits will argue about that separately, but because the mechanism FIFA built to fix officiating mistakes ended up deciding a World Cup quarterfinal by technicality. Switzerland, still seeking its first ever World Cup semi-final, will head home wondering what might have been with 11 men on the field. And the anger didn't stay confined to the Swiss dressing room. Former England goalkeeper Joby McAnuff, working as a pundit, said on air that sending a player off in a game of that magnitude felt harsh, even if the letter of the law technically supported it, as McAnuff put it on ITV Sport. That's a neutral broadcaster, not a Swiss employee, saying the punishment didn't fit the moment. So you've got the captain calling it game-changing, the defender saying he can't understand the logic, the coach calling the rule incomprehensible, a television analyst calling it harsh even by the book. 4 separate voices, 4 different vantage points, landing on the same conclusion within minutes of the final whistle. That's not one team being sore losers, that's a chorus. And it's happening to FIFA at the worst possible time, because this isn't the first time in this exact tournament that officiating has been the story instead of the football. To understand why this red card blew up the way it did, you have to understand the rule sitting behind it. Because this wasn't some ancient law of the game, it's brand new, built specifically for this World Cup. The VAR protocol allowed video review of clear and obvious errors in 4 game-changing situations. A goal, a penalty, direct red cards, and mistaken identity when the wrong player is shown a red or yellow card. That 4th category, mistaken identity, is the one that swallowed Switzerland whole. Starting with the 2026 World Cup, VAR can intervene to overturn a red card. If a second yellow was shown in error, on paper this sounds sensible. Referees make split-second calls constantly, and if the camera clearly shows the wrong guy got booked, why not fix it? The problem is what happens when fixing it means moving a punishment from one player to another rather than just erasing it. According to its description, mistaken identity is when the referee shows a yellow or red card, but has clearly penalized the wrong player of either team for the offense in question. Mistaken identity has been termed a match-changing error by the International Football Association Board, an international body that manages the laws of football. Match-changing, that's the exact phrase the people who wrote the rule used to describe it. They knew going in that this call could flip a result. They built it anyway. Here's the mechanical detail that made Embolo's night so brutal. According to FIFA's new rule in cases of simulation, the on-field referee must remove the punishment from the offender and apply it to the actor. That word "must" is doing a lot of work. The referee didn't have discretion to just wave away the whole sequence. Once VAR flagged simulation, the protocol forced a swap. Yellow off Paird's, yellow onto Embolo. And because Embolo already had one in his pocket from earlier in the match, the swap detonated into a red. It all began when Argentina's Leandro Paredes was given a yellow card for a foul on Embolo. But the decision was reviewed by the video assistant referee in the 71st minute. And play resumed but was halted once again when a VAR review was called. And the decision was not only reversed, but Embolo was shown his second yellow of the match. For mistaken identity and sent off, 2 separate stoppages, 2 separate reviews. All to reach a conclusion that took the contest from 11 versus 11 to 11 versus 10, with the game still hanging in the balance. This wasn't some obscure footnote buried in a rulebook nobody reads. The World Cup had seen its first mistaken identity red card, with Switzerland's Breel Embolo sent off in his team's quarterfinal against Argentina in Kansas City, becoming the first player to be penalized for mistaken identity when he was dismissed in the 72nd minute of the match. First of its kind at the quarterfinal stage, deciding a World Cup knockout game. That's about as high stakes a debut as a rule can get. And Embolo's situation put him in rare company for all the wrong reasons. Embolo is the 4th player in the last 60 years of the World Cup to receive a second yellow card for simulation, joining Mexico's Luis Perez in 2006 versus Portugal, Ghana's Asamoah Gyan in 2006 versus Brazil, and Italy's Francesco Totti in 2002 versus South Korea. 4 names spanning 6 decades, and every single World Cup fan who's followed the tournament for any length of time remembers those earlier controversies as some of the most bitter in the competition's history. Embolo just joined a list nobody wants to be on. What makes this instance different from Totti or Gyan is the machinery behind it. Those were split-second human judgment calls made in real time, with no camera to second-guess the referee. This one had 2 separate video reviews, a rulebook with the word "must" in it, and still ended with a result that half the football world thinks was unjust. The technology was supposed to remove controversy. Instead, it built a brand new kind of controversy. One where the outrage isn't just the ref got it wrong, but the ref followed the rule perfectly and it still felt wrong. That's a much harder problem for FIFA to manage, because you can't just tell an official to use better judgment next time. The rule worked exactly as designed. If people are angry at the outcome, they're angry at the rule itself, not a mistake within it. And once you're getting backlash for a system functioning correctly, that's not a referee problem anymore, that's a FIFA problem. The confusion wasn't limited to fans on social media either. Coach Yakin, breaking down the sequence afterward, said there shouldn't have even been a yellow card handed out in the first place for what he considered a harmless challenge. Or maybe not a foul at all, saying the officiating destroyed our game today. and that it hurt enormously to be eliminated this way. He wasn't attacking the concept of VAR outright. He was attacking the specific mechanism that turned a marginal call into a season-ending swing. And that's really the crux of why this became a story bigger than one match. A rule engineered to fix obvious referee mistakes ended up creating an entirely new category of controversy. One where correcting an error for one team meant inflicting a much bigger one on the other. Switzerland walked into that match at full strength, tied the score, had momentum, and walked out of it with 10 men and a coach questioning the very framework FIFA built for this tournament. If this had been an isolated incident, FIFA could probably ride it out with an apology and a footnote in next year's rulebook. It isn't isolated. This is where the backlash stops being about one match and starts being about a tournament-wide credibility problem. Go back just a few days before Embolo's red card. Earlier that week, the Egyptian Football Association said it cannot remain silent after what it believed was biased officiating in its 3-2 loss to Argentina in the round of 16. With coach Hassam Hassan and several players criticizing the officiating after the defending champions scored 3 unanswered goals to pull off one of the biggest comebacks in World Cup history. Same opponent, same tournament, same complaint that the referees were bending things in Argentina's direction. FIFA's response to that came from the top of its officiating department. Nobody can question the integrity of the FIFA World Cup match officials, FIFA's chief of refereeing Pierluigi Collina said in response, adding that when this happens, it may provoke reactions that lead to threats against them and their families, and that this is not right. That's the governing body defending its officials publicly, days before those same officials would be at the center of an even bigger storm. There have been multiple officiating controversies to come out of the tournament, and FIFA's refereeing chief rejected claims of bias in Argentina's win, after Egypt's coach Hassam Hassan alleged after the match that there may have been pressure on the referee to keep Argentina in the tournament. Egypt asked FIFA to investigate the officiating after its loss, with the Egyptian Federation saying key calls affected the match, while Argentina's comeback kept its tournament hopes alive. Some fans online have claimed Argentina received favorable treatment, but no evidence of corruption has been proven. Notice the pattern building here. 2 different national federations in back-to-back knockout rounds, both eliminated by or nearly eliminated by the same opponent, both pointing fingers at the officiating. That's not a coincidence people are willing to ignore. Then there's the referee assignment itself. Refereeing was back in the spotlight after FIFA announced João Pinheiro would be the head referee for the match. And Pinheiro had refereed the Bayern Munich vs Paris Saint-Germain Champions League semi-final. In that match, a free kick that should have led to a second yellow card for handball by PSG defender Nuno Mendes was overturned after just 29 minutes, when Bayern badly needed a way back into the game. Bayern's own coach Vincent Kompany admitted afterward he thought the second yellow was coming, saying he felt the referee pulled back because he didn't want to send him off for that, and turned the call the other way. So the man in the middle for Argentina-Switzerland already had a recent history of contentious, momentum-altering decisions in one of Europe's biggest club fixtures. FIFA handed him the World Cup quarterfinal anyway. And then there's the controversy that pulled in the most powerful office in the United States. President Donald Trump said he spoke to high-level FIFA officials to request a review of the U.S. men's national team's Folarin Balogun red card suspension ahead of the match against Belgium. Trump didn't hold back on how he framed the double standard, asking pointedly how people would feel if Messi got taken out because he ran into somebody, or if the same happened to Ronaldo. That wasn't just noise from the sidelines either. European soccer leaders criticized FIFA's decision to let USMNT striker Folarin Balogun play after a questionable red card in the second half of their win over Bosnia. And while the US was out of the World Cup, the controversy wasn't over. Put it all together, Egypt accusing officials of bias against them, and for Argentina, the US red card controversy pulling in a sitting president and European Federation heads. A referee with a recent track record of contentious reversals being handed the Argentina-Switzerland quarterfinal. And then Embolo's sending off, using a rule so new it had never decided a World Cup match before. In the exact fixture everyone was already watching closely. This is why the backlash didn't stay confined to a Swiss dressing room. By the time Pinheiro pointed to that second yellow, half the football world was already primed to see it as part of something bigger. Whether or not that's fair to the individual officials involved, the pattern is what people react to, not any single decision in isolation. Former USMNT midfielder Alejandro Bedoya, now working as an analyst, put a broader frame on the whole tournament's officiating saga, arguing that VAR is taking away some of the emotion of the game, speaking to growing unease among people who love the sport, but feel like the video review era has turned officiating into its own storyline. Every single match rather than a background function nobody thinks about. That's the environment FIFA walked into with the Embolo call. Not a clean slate. A tournament already carrying multiple open wounds about fairness, timing, and whether the video review system was serving the game, or just adding new ways for controversy to erupt. So Switzerland went down to 10 men with roughly 20 minutes still on the clock in a tied World Cup quarterfinal. What actually happened next tells you just as much about the scale of this story as the red card itself. Up until Embolo's booking, the match was evenly poised in terms of control, as well as the scoreline, which stood at 1-1, with less than 20 minutes to go until full time. And while Switzerland held on to the score until the end of normal time, they eventually paid the price of being a man down by conceding 2 goals in extra time and were eliminated. That word "eventually" is carrying a lot of weight there. This wasn't a team that instantly collapsed. Switzerland dug in, held the line for the rest of regulation with 10 men against a full Argentina side, and forced the match into extra time anyway. Yakin was blunt about how well his players had actually been doing before the card changed everything. After the equalizer, we had the momentum on our side, and I wanted to make substitutions there as well to bring on fresh attacking players. Switzerland coach Murat Yakin said, "We were dominant, we controlled the game. But the red card, we are punished because of a rule that is, to me, absolutely incomprehensible. Of course it hurts enormously that we were eliminated in this way. We didn't deserve that today." That's not a coach making excuses after a blowout loss. Switzerland was level, playing well, with a plan for fresh legs off the bench, and then had to scrap all of it to play defense with 10 men for the rest of the night. The finish, when it came, arrived deep into the additional period. Playing a man up, Argentina still needed almost the full 30 minutes of extra time to break Switzerland's resistance. In the 112th minute, Alvarez picked up the ball on the left flank, cut inside past a tiring backline, and curled a shot past goalkeeper Gregor Kobel into the far post for the 2-1 winner. That sent Lionel Scaloni's side into the semifinals for a second straight tournament. 20 extra minutes of defending a lead they no longer fully controlled. And Switzerland still made Argentina work until the 112th minute to find a winner. That's the part that makes the outcome sting even more for Swiss fans. This wasn't a team that got run off the pitch once the numbers evened out. It's a team that came agonizingly close to surviving the disadvantage altogether. The final score didn't reflect how tight the match actually was for most of it. Argentina needed extra time to eliminate Switzerland 3-1 in the quarterfinals of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. One of those goals came in the dying embers of extra time, once Switzerland had nothing left to give, chasing an equalizer down a man, which tends to inflate a scoreline that never reflected the balance of the actual contest. And for the player at the center of it all, the emotional toll was immediate and visible. Embolo was inconsolable afterward, with teammate Denis Zakaria pleading with Pinheiro on the field, and Swiss captain Granit Xhaka confronting the referee again during the next hydration break. 2 separate flashpoints of players going directly at the referee mid-match. One from a teammate trying to argue in the moment, another from the captain returning to press the issue even after play had resumed. That's not a squad that quietly accepted the call and moved on. That's a team that spent the rest of the night visibly unable to let it go. Off the pitch, the moment spread fast. Social media went crazy over the situation and the sending off, coming just as Argentina was looking shaken by Switzerland's improvement on the field. That timing detail matters. This didn't happen when Argentina was cruising. It happened at the exact moment Switzerland had clawed level and looked like the side building momentum. The red card arrived at the single worst possible moment for a team just finding its rhythm, which is precisely why it detonated online the way it did. For a country still without a World Cup semi-final appearance to its name, the sting runs deeper than one bad night. Switzerland, still seeking its first ever World Cup semi-final, will head home wondering what might have been with 11 men on the field. Every previous generation of Swiss football has hit this same ceiling. This time, the team that broke through to have a real look at it did so with 10 men on the field for the final act of a match. They were, by every account from their own camp, dominating when it happened. Meanwhile, for Argentina, the result extends a run that already had question marks attached to it from the round before. the 26-year-old forward Julian Alvarez, who moved from Manchester City to Atletico Madrid in 2024 for a club record fee reportedly worth $108.5 million. Now has 15 goals and 52 caps for Argentina, a tally that includes a semi-final brace against Croatia at the 2022 World Cup. A player of that caliber delivering the winner should be the headline of the night. Instead, the conversation coming out of Kansas City has been dominated almost entirely by the 10 minutes of officiating that preceded his goal. So where does this leave FIFA? And where does it leave the sport heading into the rest of this tournament? The mistaken identity rule isn't going anywhere mid-tournament. It's written into the protocol IFAB approved before a ball was kicked. The new VAR rules in the game allow mistaken identity issues to be picked up and reviewed by the VAR team. And that's not going to get switched off because one match went badly for one team. But the conversation about how the rule should apply going forward has already started. And it started with the very next controversy in the very next round. A similar situation next season will let the referee follow their first instinct and review the whole passage of play at a pitch-side monitor, which tells you FIFA and IFAB are already aware the current version of the rule produces exactly the kind of outcome Switzerland just suffered, where a video review can swap a card between two players, without the referee ever getting a second look at the full sequence, with their own eyes on the sideline monitor. That change is coming. It just didn't come in time for him below. For Switzerland, the immediate aftermath is grief mixed with disbelief. Ex-Haka's comments about a quiet, disappointed dressing room after the game weren't the words of a team that felt they'd been beaten by a better side. They were the words of a team that felt the outcome had been taken out of their hands by a rule most of them had never had explained to them. In that kind of live, match-deciding context, Yakin, for his part, drew a clear line about where he placed the blame, saying flatly afterward that his team had been punished by a referee's mistake. As Yakin told reporters, even while stopping short of alleging any deliberate bias toward Argentina, that distinction matters. Nobody in the Swiss camp stood up and accused FIFA of rigging the outcome. What they did say, consistently and on the record, is that a brand new rule produced a result nobody watching the match thought was proportionate to what actually happened on the pitch. That's a different and in some ways more damaging kind of criticism for FIFA to sit with. It's not an accusation of corruption they can simply deny. It's a design flaw acknowledged by the very fact that IFAB is already planning to change how the review works. For Egypt, the earlier grievance remains unresolved heading into the semi-final stage, with the federation's request for an officiating review still sitting with FIFA, as the tournament moves on without them. For the United States, the Balogun suspension controversy pulled in political pressure that no World Cup organizing body wants attached to its refereeing department, and that story hadn't quietly gone away either. 3 separate federations, 3 separate grievances, all inside the same 2-week stretch of knockout football. What ties all of it together isn't a single villain or a single bad call. It's a tournament where the technology built to remove doubt from officiating kept producing new categories of doubt instead: mistaken identity swaps, red card suspensions playing out in real time, referees with recent contentious history being handed the biggest fixtures on the calendar. And below sending off wasn't an isolated glitch in that pattern. It was the moment the pattern became impossible to ignore, playing out in a World Cup quarterfinal in front of a global audience, deciding which country got a shot at its first ever semi-final appearance. Switzerland's players and staff made their feelings clear in the immediate aftermath, furious, disbelieving, and specific about exactly which rule and which sequence they held responsible. Whatever changes FIFA and IFAB make to the mistaken identity protocol going forward, they'll be making them with Kansas City as the case study everyone points back to. For now, Switzerland is home, Argentina is through to the semifinals for a second straight tournament, and the conversation around how a video review system should actually work in the biggest moments of the biggest tournament in the sport is far from settled.